So my intent was to do my next Latent Regard on Titanfall 2, but I've got a bit longer to go on that game, so I'm digging into the archives to do a different game I played long after it was released, and you're going to like it! I'm joking, please don't leave me. With Split Fiction releasing this year and garnering near universal praise, including wins at the Golden Joysticks and multiple nominations at the Game Awards, it seems like a good time to take a look back at Hazelight Studios and Yosef Farah's first breakout hit, A Way Out. Steam listed as a very positive rated experience with about 20,000 reviews and a solid C+ on Metacritic, and hey, if a C+ was good enough for me to graduate high school, it should be good enough for a video game too, right? Indeed, A Way Out filled a niche that has been left rather unfilled since games like Army of Two and Kane and Lynch were in the zeitgeist. That of games designed specifically as PvE cooperative experiences. A couple of notable failures in the format, in Dead Space 3 and F3, soured a lot of people to the idea of crafted co-op experiences. That, coupled with the release and subsequent success of games like Borderlands 2, Fortnite, and Destiny, shifted the public multiplayer consciousness away from two-player co-op and more into your battle royale and looter-shooter territory, and so they fell by the wayside. Except for Nintendo, but they always do whatever they want anyway, so that's neither here nor there. But I'm a younger brother, which is the only way I've found that a dude pushing 40 can be accurately described as young, so I'll take it. As such, I grew up with and still have fond memories of playing co-op games, always as player 2 because some paradigms must be adhered to, with my older brother. Even in college, co-op games with my roommates were common, most especially the blood-soaked chainsaw dueling simulator Gears of War. I have a long-standing affinity for the format, so much so that I waited for Baldur's Gate 3 to come out on Xbox Series X so I could play it in couch co-op with my wife. Incidentally, whenever we finish it, I'll do a video on that too. So I took to A Way Out with a nostalgic enthusiasm that had me primed to enjoy it. On that note, I'm going to leave you with a question as we dive into the finer points of this game. Is a game good just because you like it? Does it make it bad if you don't? We'll circle back around to this question later, but for now, I want to be very clear about this right off the bat so there are no illusions as we progress. A Way Out is a bad game. The gameplay is bad, the writing is bad, the voice acting is bad, the story is bad, and I had fun with every second of it. Much the same way as watching a bad movie or reading a tawdry book has a strange sort of sadistic appeal, all of the broken pieces of this game form together into something that is somehow endearing, like a dog with 3 legs and 1 eye. Every shaky, stilted step forward it takes feels like an achievement in and of itself, and the sheer effort and earnestness with which it does so makes you want to reflexively go, "Oh, look how hard it's trying, what a good boy," even as it smacks its face against the wall and stumbles to the floor in a heap. So what is the framework around which this unmitigated disaster of an amateurish undergrad art installation is built? Well, you're in jail. Both of you. Yeah, it's a co-op only experience, which means you need to find a friend to play it with. So if you're like most mid-20 to early 30s adults in this country, chances are you failed to meet minimum requirements at step 1. Assuming the prostitute you picked up agreed to forego their usual trade work and spend your time watching this dumpster fire, your goal quickly becomes that which the name of the game suggests: finding a way out. At least the title is pithy and descriptive. Nothing else about the game is, however. I swear all of the dialogue was written by someone who was only familiar with the concept of human speech by rough description, like a telepathic jellyfish from Neptune. As your main characters, whose names failed to sink into my brain wrinkles, but we affectionately referred to as Football Dad and Beak Nose, fumble through their introductory segments with all the grace of your virgin ass trying to ask a girl to prom, I genuinely wondered if the writers had ever actually held a conversation with another human, or if they had only ever imagined them while staring wistfully through the bars of the forgotten Siberian writer's gulag in which they were imprisoned. Okay, let's not beat up too much on the poor writers and characters. There's also gameplay that's begging for a turn in the can crusher. I would love to tell you all about the core gameplay loop of this game, but I'll be damned if I ever found one in our 6 or so hours with it. It schizophrenically switches genres with each chapter, going from a mini-game-a-thon that feels akin to something like an R-rated Mario Party, to a racing game, to a friggin' third-person shooter, and even a bit of 1v1 PvP deathmatch just for fun. Of every individual gameplay feature in the game, the single one we spent the most time with was probably the ring toss, and that's just because I refused to leave before getting a perfect score. Game didn't even have the decency to give me an achievement for it. All this is wrapped around a story that feels ripped straight from something like Heat or Changing Lanes, where self-serious men trade expletives about revenge and honor and betrayal. There are even whole subplots about the anxieties of fatherhood and the strength of family that it mixes with the sheer mind-boggling amount of ruthless murder the main characters commit. Thing is, it does so with such earnestness and sincerity that it's hard not to actually find yourself feeling something for these simulacra of humanoid creatures. Now I know how my mother must have felt every time I showed her another of my Dragon Ball Z drawings.
So, now that you've heard my friend's jubilant ass-reaming of A Way Out, I feel as though it's my duty, to provide an opinion that is both critical but also defensive of a game that, while very flawed, was an incredibly enjoyable gameplay experience from beginning to end for me. It's funny how often the Papman and I debate the quality of a piece of media, and it turns into one of us looking for the good and one of us looking for the bad. The voice acting, sure, it's not on the level of certain AAA voice actors whom permeate our video game universe. The likes of Troy Baker or Ashley Birch cannot be found in A Way Out, but that isn't to say the voice acting was bad. It was fine. Yes, the game should be aiming for better than fine, but not every game or studio can afford higher caliber and established voice actors. And frankly, I never once was distracted by the voice acting. I never found it bad to the point that it took me out of the experience. Was it standout or memorable? No. But was it bad? I really don't think it was. And then there's the gameplay. Yes, the game can be schizophrenic often to the point it doesn't know what planet it's on. There are run-and-gun segments that feel like they're cut right out of a poor man's Uncharted, full of wanton destruction and copious amounts of gunplay. Gunplay that would make even the staunchest supporter of these escaped prisoners question the morality of these intrepid, misunderstood criminals as they pour thousands of bullets towards police officers, who are just doing their jobs. There are puzzle-solving, find out how to open this door kind of sections that feel like they were designed by somebody who played way too much Dizzy's Adventure on the NES as a kid, where you acquire a thing to use the thing on a thing in order to get a thing. Then, there are the forced exposition sections, where the characters explain their backstory and motivation to the audience almost directly while having conversations that feel like ChatGPT was asked by Tom Hanks from Castaway to talk to him like he's a real boy. Then in between all those types of gameplay, there are the sections that just let the player fart around throwing darts or trying on hats, because video game. The cops are chasing us, pregnant wife, tragic backstory, but don't worry, we're still silly. How does this hat look on me? Can you beat my high score throwing horseshoes? It does leave the player somewhat disjointed at times, and makes the game feel less like a cohesive, well thought through and planned experience with characters of purpose, and more of a let's throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks kind of approach to pleasing the gamer. But in spite of those flaws, I feel the measure of a game is less the sum of its parts and more the sum of the enjoyment that can be drawn from it. I've played games that were far superior technically that ultimately bored the hell out of me, like the Lost Planet games. But this game kept my attention throughout. I was laughing through much of the game as my friend and I were cracking jokes about climbing up a narrow wall, butt to butt, or teasing the other with death when one player has a QuickTime event to easily save the other and is conflicted on whether they will. Now the writing was bad. The writing was horrendously bad. The writing was damn near atrocious. We're talking afternoon soap opera bad. I cannot in good conscience defend the writing, even if I am the guy who tries to find the good in everything I watch and play. Whoever wrote this, it just feels like the only characters they've ever written for were the minions. And they weren't exactly known for their clever back and forth banter. Papoy? Ah, Papoy. Banana. Yeah, it doesn't really flow with pregnant wife, tragic backstory. Like other games, A Way Out tries its hand at the twist. A moment of story revelation that is supposed to leave the gamer's jaw dropped from surprise. Some of the most memorable video games in memory have an amazing twist that blows the player's mind and makes them look at their previous time in the game with a different lens. BioWare games come to mind, with amazing plot twists from Mass Effect and Knights of the Old Republic, leaving the player spit-taking their own TV in surprise. But the twist in A Way Out, without spoilers, is lame. It not only doesn't make sense, it's frankly the worst plan in the history of bad plans. And I sat through Doctor Strange 2. I need to kill everybody because of my dream babies. Bad plan. Personally, I feel like a C+ is a fair score for A Way Out. It's an enjoyable and functional game. It doesn't break any new ground, and the gameplay works even if it's just fine. And it works as I think the designers intended. A fun, shared experience with another human being, even if it can be a disjointed experience at times. It's really held back by one thing. It's need to be enjoyed in co-op. And as I've found from my experience, as you get older, finding gaming partners to share the time to team up and break out of prison, well, it might be easier to actually get arrested and then find someone in real life to Shawshank your way out with Taziwa. Would I recommend this game? Yes, but only if you have somebody to play it with.
So we circle back to the question I asked at the beginning of this video. Is a game good just because you like it? Is a game bad just because you don't? We all like to consider ourselves the arbiters of our own good taste. Frankly, I think we've utterly failed to answer the question, but did firmly establish that I have at least one really good friend with whom I like to play, so I'm doing better than you loner-ass bitch. Common consensus is that, in their subsequent games, Hazelight's writing has evolved into something approaching verisimilitude, their latest even coming so far as to be praised. I'm interested in seeing what these games have to offer, as, for us, the pod person vibe was a huge part of what we enjoyed about John Carpenter's The Town. Will the games of Josef Fares have the same appeal if they're actually cogent and well-made? Who's to say? I do know that as long as I play them with a good friend, I'll probably enjoy myself. Did you guys hear the part where I said I have friends? Will someone tell Ken from high school? 20 years on and he won't let it go.